In Section 4, we will now discuss basic ladder operations. The objectives of Section 4 include basic ladder operations from the basket, basic ladder operations from the turntable, how to assemble both parts of the waterway, how to assemble the basket protection line, and how to assemble the Stokes basket frame assembly for rescue. A few reminders from Section 3 is make sure that the apparatus is properly positioned for fireground operations, whether it be for fire suppression, for rescue, or for ventilation or any other operation. Ensure that the apparatus is free from any overhead obstructions before the final position for ladder operations. And also ensure that the apparatus is properly jacked and stabilized prior to using the ladder. Failure to follow these quick reminders will delay in starting ladder operations. It may prevent the apparatus from being repositioned because other apparatus are now in close proximity, and it may actually prevent the use of the apparatus completely. When we talk about ladder operations, we're going to begin at the rescue basket. The controls are very similar between the controls that you find at the rescue basket and at the turntable operator's position. Anytime that you're wanting to move the ladder, it's important to remember that the dead man switch on the floor directly underneath the control panel must be depressed for ladder movement. The joysticks, both in the rescue basket as well as the turntable control operator's position, are progressive, which means that when you begin to move the joystick, the ladder doesn't immediately begin to move. You can move the joystick all the way to its full fastest position, and the computer will open the valve slowly and close the valve slowly to ensure that there's no violent movements within the ladder. Also, you will notice that there is an analog load indicator at the basket control panel. This analog load monitor is allowing the operator to monitor the loads and the stresses on the ladder during operations. And this will be one indicator when you have exceeded or have met the maximum capacities of the aerial device. On this slide, we have the operating console diagram for the rescue basket controls. At the very top, you will notice a red emergency stop button. This button is to be used anytime there is an emergency situation where ladder operations must immediately stop. It is a button that can be reset. Directly below, you will notice two joysticks. The left joystick only controls the extension and retraction of the fly sections of the ladder. The right joystick controls the left and right rotation at the turntable, as well as the elevation and lowering of the main ladder. Directly below the joysticks, you will notice that there are four buttons that are either green and yellow, yellow, or green. Starting at the top left of those four buttons, you will notice that the first button is the engine start or stop button. For some reason, if you need to stop the engine, this is the button that you can use to control that. The green button directly below is the rung alignment button. If you're going to have someone climbing the ladder, you will depress the button and then use the joystick to either extend or retract the ladder to the next position where the rungs are aligned for climbing. On the top right yellow button of the four buttons, this is an impact sensor light. If for some reason there is a collision with the rescue basket or with portions of the ladder, this will indicate that the ladder has possibly been overstressed or has come in contact and may have been damaged in some way. The last green button that you see is the automatic auto bed function. When the ladder is ready to be put away and stored, once ladder operations are complete, this will be the button you'll depress to normally store the ladder. Directly below this, you will notice a circle with two LED indicators for how many people are in the basket, as well as a load indicator. We'll discuss the load indicator more in depth shortly. You will also notice that there are other LEDs that will illuminate to show restriction of movement. We'll discuss these in detail on the next slide. Here is another diagram of the rescue basket control panel. The blocked movement indicators are directly below the respective joystick that the indications are for. On the left joystick, you'll notice that there are two blocked indicators as well as a green indicator for normal operations. If the retraction or extension of the ladder for the left joystick is being restricted, the respective LED will be illuminated. This will be corrected when the movement of the ladder is brought to a condition that is acceptable for the computer. The right joystick has 4 blocked movement indicators for either raising of the ladder, lowering of the ladder, a left rotation, or right rotation. If one of those movements is being restricted, the corresponding LED will be illuminated. If all movements are available, the green LED in the center will be illuminated. There is also the analog load indicator, as well as other indicators on the panel.
Go ahead and extend this out just a little bit too.
I already told you the auto bed.
Watch the hose behind us, make sure we don't wind ourselves up.
When moving to the controls at the turntable, remember that these operations are similar. The layout of some of the controls and their indicators are going to be in a different location from the rescue basket. In the floor pan at the turntable operator's position, there are 2 pedals instead of 1. The pedal on the left is for the intercom to allow communications between the turntable operator and the rescue basket. The pedal on the right is the dead man switch for ladder operations. Once the dead man is activated, the turntable operator, if they desire to take controls over from the rescue basket, will have to activate the override switch at the turntable operator's control panel. At any time that the rescue basket and the ladder is in operation, an operator should remain near the turntable and the apparatus at all times. In the event that an emergency occurs or a malfunction occurs with the apparatus, it will allow a second operator to attempt to get the ladder stored and get personnel safely to the ground. This slide shows a diagram of the main operating console at the turntable operator's position. Many of the controls that you find on this diagram are similar to that found on the rescue basket. On the top of the operating console, you will notice restricted movement indicators similar to that found in the rescue basket. Directly below those indicators, you will also find the OK to raise and the suspension locked indicators similar to what was found at the outrigger control panels at the rear of the apparatus. Now, below those indicator buttons, we'll go down the left-hand column first. Below the OK to raise button, you will find the rung alignment button similar to the rescue basket. On our apparatus, we also have 2 spotlights mounted to the main section of the ladder. To activate these spotlights, simply push the button. The auto bed function, which again is the normal operation for bedding the ladder, is the next one below the spotlight. The very bottom button in the left-hand column is the engine start-stop button. Now moving to the right-hand column, below the suspension locked button, you will find a collision button similar to the rescue basket. You will also find the button to take priority control over the rescue basket directly below the collision button. If for some reason we have a loss of hydraulic pressure within the hydraulic system for the apparatus, the yellow button below the override button will be illuminated. Below that button is the maximum load button. If you're operating the ladder and movement is being restricted, you can push the button up to 3 times. The first button will allow a little more loading to the ladder. A second depress of the button will add more loading again. And if you push it 3 times, this will provide the ultimate lifting and maximum capacity for the ladder. In most cases, the ladder will be left in its maximum operating limits. However, the operator can depress this button to see if there's any change. Remember that at the main operator control stand, there is a dead man switch also that for ladder operations must be depressed at any time the ladder is to be moved. On this slide, we'll discuss the multiple indication display found at the turntable operator's position. The red indications at the top of this panel are collision indicators and will indicate what type of collision has been sensed with the computer. Directly below that, the yellow button indicates the maximum loading for the ladder without the basket attached. The white button to the right of the yellow is indicating that all rungs are in alignment. The green buttons below should all be illuminated when the ladder is in its normal bedded position. The final check before the engine is shut off or the ladder truck is moved should be that you have 3 green indicators at the bottom of this display and 1 white rung alignment display in order for the ladder to be normally bedded. Directly below this, you will see the analog load indicator. Once again, it's important to remember that you'll have a display of green LEDs and red LEDs whenever the ladder is in operation. When the green and red LEDs meet, the ladder has reached its maximum load and now movement restrictions will begin to occur. The 2 digital displays below this indicate the length of projection or extension and also the elevation angle of the ladder.
Gain control from the seat, put your foot on the dead man and press the green button. Activate control.
Once operations with the ladder are complete and we're ready to return it to storage, remember that normal operations for storage is to use the auto bed function on this apparatus. The auto bed function can be selected from either the basket operator's position or the turntable operator's position. In either case, for the auto bed function to work, the dead man switch must be depressed and then the auto bed function activated using the appropriate button. While the auto bed function is in operation, it's important to monitor the ladder movements at all time. Make sure that it appears that the ladder will not strike any part of the apparatus and that it will actually bed as is intended. If at any time it appears that there's a malfunction with the auto bed function, simply remove your foot from the dead man switch and all ladder operations will cease. Now we're going to discuss the analog load indicator more in depth. The importance of this indicator is that it is showing the stresses and loading of the ladder at all times. The red LEDs in the indicator are showing jack loading. The green LEDs are showing ladder loading. It's important to remember that if both arcs, the red and green LEDs, meet in the middle, that the computer will start limiting movements in certain areas. The way to be able to correct this, to be able to continue to use the ladder, will be to move to a safer angle. This usually will be either retraction of a ladder or an increase in ladder angle. As we look a little closer at the analog load indicators, remember we discussed on the turntable operator's position the ability to be able to push a load override of once, twice, or 3 times. If you'll look in this diagram where we have 3 people indicated in the center of the display, when you press the button once, it's indicating that 1 person is in the basket. Push the button twice, it'll indicate 2 people in the basket. and push the button 3 times and it will indicate 3 persons in the basket. Remember that you have a series of green and red LEDs. Once the green and LEDs have met in the arc, the computer will then begin limiting movement. The way to overcome movement limits is to change the angle of the ladder or retract the ladder to decrease the amount of load. We're now going to discuss the turntable ladder. Unlike other apparatus that normally have some form of platform to allow you to gain access to the main ladder from the ground, because of its design, we have a specific ladder designed for this purpose. The ladder is stored on the apparatus cab on the passenger side. Once you remove the ladder from its storage location, they will engage a bar mounted to the top of the main ladder at the rear of the apparatus. The hooks mounted to the ladder will engage this bar. On either side of the ladder, there are also a release mechanism to be able to extend the ladder to ground level. You'll extend the ladder a sufficient distance to provide for a normal climbing angle to gain access to the ladder.